Hi Stampers, it's Debra Burgin with heartfeltinspiration.com. And today I'm going to be bringing you a technique video. The technique is called stained glass. I was thinking about videos to do, and I remembered that we had years ago done a series of classes or a series of camps using a different technique every month. And I still have these. I had them on a ring. I keep them on my in my stamp area. And this one, the stained glass technique, we did in 2007. Could that be right? That doesn't sound right. Okay, I thought I knew, but anyway, a long time ago. It couldn't. It's not that long. No, it was probably 2000. Well, whatever. Anyway, we're going to revisit this. And this gorgeous leaf is somehow the autumn images seem to lend themselves to this, or flowers too. So that's this leaf. And we're going to be doing, or I'm going to be showing you this one. I hope you can see the sparkle on here on this card. I will post this card tomorrow to show you all the details on it. But meanwhile, let's get started. See all that gold over here? Okay, so you need a stamp that is a line image stamp. This is the one that we're using. Why do I say we? I am using this stamp, and it is from the stamp set Gather Together, obviously a photopolymer stamp set. This was in last year's, I don't know what, but this is not a new stamp. This is a carryover stamp. And I guess it must have been in last year's holiday catalog. And it's in this year's 2020 August through December mini catalog, the one that just started yesterday. This is a gorgeous stamp set. This leaf, well, the whole thing is beautiful. And really nice sentiments as well. And I have to admit that when I included the Gather Together on this tag, well, don't I wish. So I said to my husband, you know, I think about Thanksgiving and so I guess we'll find out what happens when it happens. Okay, so anyway, a line image, that means not a solid image, but one that you would typically color. We're going to be coloring this, but in a slightly different way. Okay, and on that card, I also happen to use the spatter. There is a spatter stamp in that stamp set, but I like this one from Forever Fern. It's just a little one, and it just adds a little something something to your card. Okay, I'm going to be using vellum. So we have just one kind of vellum. It is, you know, translucent, so you can see through it, and that's the magic of the stained glass technique. I'm going to stamp using Versamark, which is this sticky, it's not really ink, but it's sticky something. And I think you can probably see the image there. And I'm going to be covering that with gold embossing powder. And by the way, sometimes it's a little tricky to find things like embossing powder and the heat tool and the Versamark pad in the big catalog. So I'll tell you, first of all, the last index page at the end gives you the accessories and that type of thing, and that happens to be where I found out that it's page 147 that's got these things on. So I use, leftover sandwich container or whatever this is to put my embossing powder in so that I can just scoop it in. I don't have any other pieces of paper or anything like that. And then, hoping there's nobody next to me, I take this off to the side and flick the back of it, and that takes off a lot of the excess powder. Now, we could have wiped this vellum with an embossing buddy, which Stampin' Up! Doesn't sell anymore, to get rid of the static electricity. But since this image is going to be die cut, I don't really care if there are speckles elsewhere because they'll be cut off. Okay, and then of course you would, I say the powder doesn't get anywhere, but it does. And then of course you would heat this, and I've done that so you don't have to wait for me to run the heat tool. And it looks like this. You know, heat embossing was one of the first things I did when I started stamping, even before I had ever heard of Stampin' Up! And you've heard this from me maybe before, that before I knew there was such a thing as a heat tool, we used to melt the powder over a light bulb. That was a little iffy, but anyway, it's still magic to me. I still love the way it looks, and especially as we go into the holidays. Okay, so here's where the technique comes. I'm going to color this. So I've got a selection of Stampin' Blends, and moving from light to dark, I'm going to be using dark pumpkin pie, upside down, dark calypso coral. This, I believe, is light Cajun craze, dark Cajun craze, and for the stem, this is bronze. But instead of coloring on the front, I'm coloring on the back. So I don't think you can really get that idea from this, but because of the translucence of the vellum, the coloring is just very, well, it doesn't look like normal coloring. So I turn this over. I'm going to do this really fast because I am. Now, I don't have to be real careful about my coloring because these lines that I see here on the back are the embossed lines, and so nothing's going to show through those embossed lines. And in fact, when it comes time to assembling the card, that's where I'm going to put my adhesive because it doesn't show through. Now, I could do some shading. I could do more coloring than this, but for purposes of this video, I'm not going to. Okay, just talk amongst yourselves while I'm doing this. Okay, and then finally, okay, so let's see what it looks like. So see how light this is right now? And I would probably go back over and make these just a little bit darker. But what I want you to see is what happens when you put something behind it. I can't really suspend this. In fact, if it's suspended, you lose a lot of the color. But when it's put against something like white, you see how intense the colors become, relatively speaking. What about a dark color? Now, I would never really use Mary Merlot, but you see you get a totally different feeling there. So you'll have to decide what the, oh, these are old, Grapefruit Grove. Look at that, intensifies the orange. So if I could find pumpkin pie in here without you guys falling asleep, ta-da! See how that works. So you're going to have to do this for yourself to see just how beautiful that coloring of the back is. Nothing behind it, something behind it. So there is a die for this. You could just as easily cut this out by hand. It's no big deal. And so I will show you how to put this card together on Thursday. It's relatively easy. It is easy. And I want you to try this technique for yourself. So again, stained glass. Okay, thanks very much. I will see you next week.